What is up, besties, and welcome back to my channel. It is your girl, the Karmic DF, and today we are not doing a reading because your girl is sick as a dog. But I woke up this morning with this feeling inside of me that I can't explain, like the weight that I've carried, been carried away. It's a really good song. Anyway, so sorry. A long time ago, you guys asked me, how do I read the Dark Mirror Oracle? And so this morning when I meditated, it popped up in my head that I at least have the energy to be able to share with you how I read that deck. But I also want you to know that even if you don't have this deck in particular, if you watch this video, I personally feel like you'll be able to pick up how I read tarot in general, how I read oracle decks in general. And one of my main reasons for this especially is because there is a lot that tarot and oracle offers that isn't going to be in the guidebook. Like, I have Dark Mirror here. I remember skimming the deck, and to be honest with you, I don't remember what the hell it said because I got more from it when I wasn't pushing for the definitions to make sense. So one thing I really want to stress when it comes to reading tarot, when it comes to reading oracle, period, in general, while it is important to know the definitions, especially when it comes to tarot, this is why we get more than one tarot deck, because imagery can offer us so much more. It's reminding me of how when we always use haunted house tarot, the Queen of Pentacles in particular, she's looking away from the pentacle as if she's shameful about how she got that pentacle. There's a rabbit on that card, which reminds me of the tortoise and the hare, and not really going through things with a fine-tooth comb. I think that's how you say it. So that's basically how I dive into tarot. And sometimes we can't see that depth if we don't meet the depth within ourselves. So don't beat yourself up if this doesn't come to you naturally. It didn't come to me naturally when I first started reading tarot and oracles. I did not know how to dive into things, but one thing that I really want to stress in life in general too is to define is to limit. I understand that there are definitions and you have to follow that logic to a certain degree, but don't limit yourself. If you're getting an intuitive nudge to be drawn to a specific image that's this small on the card, don't ignore that because it's your guides taking advantage of what you have in front of you. It's why I can divinate with charms and yogi tea, little whatever the hell they say. So basically my intention with this video is to help you guys begin to understand the depth and complexity within these decks themselves. And if you can learn through just the Dark Mirror, which is a very popular one, I'm going to probably put it on the thumbnail. But once you can see it through this, then hopefully you'll be able to see it in your tarot decks, in your oracle decks, not just this one. So without further ado, thank you to everybody that sits through 30 seconds of ads. It's a free and easy way to support my page. To my mama bears that are going to yell at me because I said that I'm going to rest, trust me, I am. I'm exhausted. I'm sure it shows. But I'm not channeling. Channeling takes so much more energy out of me. This is just me helping you guys so that when you practice your own tarot and oracle, you can begin to see things the way that I do so that you can find hidden messages that you never thought you'd find. Like, I'm being drawn to Where's Waldo, right? Like, that it's complicated. So let's dive right into it. I have the decks in order. So we'll start with the first card. So Triumph of Lies. Let's make sure you can see that. Okay. So what do I get from this? Well, one, it's a skeleton, right? So it makes me go, okay, what did you have to do to get that crown on your head? You know what I mean? Because you don't look happy about it. You don't look thrilled. I'm also being drawn to the imagery. So if we're doing something like true crime, notice how there's a necklace on her. See what I mean? Her. I usually assume that this card means a man. Do you see what I'm saying? So I think Spirit's probably going to draw me to little things I haven't noticed in the past before. I'm also being drawn to the fact that it kind of looks like there's little bodies near it, which kind of reminds me of like when you go to a shopping mall and they have, you know, those things where it's like they're showing off their clothes. I'm so sorry, I'm tired. So that's kind of the point that I'm going to get into with these decks. When I feel like Triumph of Lies is more of an easier one, but also being drawn to the moon phases, right? Like this reminds me of like a waning gibbous or a waxing gibbous. So are we, with the Triumph of Lies, are we building up emotionally or are we coming down emotionally? Because if we're talking about the Triumph of Lies, especially when we do like Diddy readings and stuff like that, it's like, what'd you do to get there would be a main message that I would get from this card. Also, the one, keep in mind the numerology, right? I think of one, I think of ego, I think of new beginnings. So it's, again, the ego, how'd you get here? What did you do? Because look at how there's so much darkness. And the only color that I'm really drawn to is the fact that there's blue on this card. And blue represents the throat chakra. So did you talk me? Did you swindle me? So it reminded me of Tinder swindler. Did you swindle me? So noticing those little things is how it's going to really help you. I don't really feel like there's much more for this card in particular. Let me double check. This could also be like, you know, if we're doing a true crime or if we're doing a Diddy reading, the fact that there's a skull on there. Did someone get offed? Did someone, Epstein didn't kill himself? You know what I mean? Like that's kind of the vibe here with the skull. So just being drawn to the little things is what's going to help you read into all forms of cards. All right, let's get to the second one. Temple of my body. All right. Temple of my body. This reminds me a lot of behavioral analysis in particular. Notice how she kind of seems very like fragile and frail. It kind of also reminds me of like animalistic nature, you know what I mean? Like you see in the wild there's prey and then there's the one that prey on the prey. Do you see what I'm saying? This feels more like a I am the prey, you know? Think of the animals, right? I can't think of an animal. I'm so sorry, the brain fog's real. But like animals that look like that, I feel so dumb right now. You'll know what I'm talking about. But when I'm drawn to that, I'm drawn to the fact that it feels like she almost feels like she's caged in. That's kind of the energy that I'm getting from this. She looks scared. Notice the facial expression. She isn't happy, right? And then the darkness. This also reminds me of like a wing. So if we were, you know, talking about maybe dark magic, or maybe you're not listening to your angels because of the darkness, but notice that there's some form of a wing on there. So again, depending on the cards surrounding will help you out better. Also, noticing the frailness here. So again, if we're doing like a true crime and we're trying to figure something out, I'd be wondering if like, are you holding somebody hostage and you're not feeding them? Or if we're talking about stars and celebrities, are they starving themselves? Are they stuck on the, you know, assumption that in order to be beautiful, we have to be thin, so thin that we're losing ourselves? You know what I mean? I'm also being drawn to the fact that her hands are in front of her most important organ, her heart. So is she blocking off her heart to keep herself protected? Notice the eyes. Again, she feels like she's threatened. She feels a little bit boxed in. She doesn't feel safe. And then obviously with the title itself, Temple of My Body, that usually means to some degree, depending on what we're talking about, has this person been essayed? Have they been taken advantage of? Is that why they're so defensive about their body language? I'm also being drawn to the fact that it's half a moon. So again, going back to the moon signs, is it a build-up or is it a slowing down? With Temple of My Body, maybe this person is slowly losing themselves, and so the moon is slowly fading away. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's all about the imagery. Anything else from this card in particular? I'm drawn to the fact that her eyes are red. So this would also remind me of someone who doesn't, can you even tell? I'm so sorry if you can't. But her eyes are red, so this is also drawing me to the fact, root chakra, right? So maybe, you know, if I'm reading a client or something, and God forbid I'd use these, I'd be worried about, hey, have you been through a significant amount of sexual trauma, because your root chakra might be blocked just by those red eyes alone? Because if it's drawing me to the red, then that's drawing me to the root. Do you see what I'm saying? Which also reminds me of like root cause. So if someone, like, let's talk like Ariana Grande, for instance, and her health and stuff, I would be wondering if this card came out, what's going on with her, that her stability doesn't feel good, right? Because if our root chakra is blocked, then we're worried about our stability and stuff like that. The nudity reminds me about vulnerability. The hands kind of reminds me of predatory behavior. T-Rex. It gives me T-Rex hands. But it's just Is there anything else I could pull from this, Spirit? She just looks scared. She looks like she's preparing for something. And she's also holding this little necklacey thing that, again, has red on it. So, again, root chakra. But then also, if we were doing something with true crime, I'd almost feel the need to be like, is there any jewelry that was lost on the body? Because notice how she's holding a necklace, but it's not on her. So if we were doing something like true crime, I'd be like, okay, this thing dangling in her hand kind of represents something like a necklace or something. So was someone missing a necklace? Because that might be the key. Someone might, yeah, I'm being drawn to Dexter. I can't completely turn this channeling off. How Dexter, the show, how he used to hold slides of his victims. So maybe someone's holding something as valuable because they did a crime and they're proud of it. Do you see what I'm saying? You can pull from these little things. The 2 always reminds me of like unity, 2 of cups, collaboration. So again, 2 people. So this would be like, you know, this reminds me of like Law and Order SVU. That's kind of the vibe I'm getting from this. And with the 2, it's like maybe there was 2 people involved, or maybe it was her against some man and she was taken advantage of. But 2, I would be drawn to that specifically. Anything else from this card? She just looks like she's very on guard would be the main message for that. But I think I covered enough with this. All right, let's move on to a different. Number 3. Oh, I went backwards, sorry. Number 3, obsession. I love this card. Obsession. The way that she's looking into that little orby thing always reminds me of a compact mirror. So why is she looking at herself is one thing that I would want to ask. Is she self-obsessed? Is she narcissistic? Usually I get self-obsessed and narcissistic, especially if this card is in reverse. But in general, I would say that whoever this is obsessed with something, obviously with obsession on it. But the fact that she's looking at this thing could mean that she's obsessed with herself, or she can't look herself in the mirror, right? Because this is also reminding me of how, like, when we talk about true crime, Diddy stuff especially, and if we're talking about women, maybe with this obsession thing, it's like, I can't look at myself anymore. When I look at myself, all I see is the past. I feel chained to it. Look at how she has this weird webbing on her head. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's like she's lost herself a little bit. That's what I would get from this card. Also, with the fact that the moon is starting to almost look like it's going to be a new moon, I could see this card being like, I'm a ticking time bomb and I'm going to expose the truth on something because it's headed towards a new moon. So it's like, I can't live with what's happening because I have to look myself in the eye. And so I'm about to explode. And with 3 on it, which reminds me of like Jupiter, expansion. I don't want this anymore. It's got to be bigger. This kind of reminds me of like a Me Too movement. Like I need to speak my truth. And with that 3, also reminds me of like 3 of Pentacles. So was there 3 people involved? Was it you and 2 other people? Were you conned in a job with that 3 of Pentacles? Because it reminds me of the 3 of Pentacles for some reason. It might remind you of the 3 of Wands or the 3 of Swords. It could remind you of the 3 of Swords, right? Maybe she got her heart broken. It's reminding me of when we did the, what video? It's not John Bonet. It's the Madeleine McCain. And if you guys want me to do John Bonet, let me know. And if you guys want me to do more readings like this, let me know. Yeah, just comment down below anything, because I know this video is not going to do as great as the other ones. That's okay. This is for the people that read tarot. I'm okay with that. But I would ask you to, is there anything else here? She's not looking directly at it. She's looking a little bit further. If you notice, her eye line is not directly at it. It's actually looking a little bit past it. So you could even go as far as to say, I can't look myself in the eye, because she's not technically looking at it. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's digging into these cards. I would ask you to sit with them and see what you could see in the cards. All right, 4, I love this card. Is this me? 4 always reminds me of Leo energy, and the unevolved Leo energy is always about the ego, right? Like, I'm a Leo. In my 20s, I was a hot mess. And it also reminds me of home life. So we could pull things like what's going on in the home life. Was there ego involved? And that's why you lost yourself with the, is this me? I'm also always drawn to the sword here, which reminds me of the Ace of Swords. And the fact that it's down makes me think, are you not speaking your truth about something? Are you not telling us what you've been through? Because look at how she looks like a warrior, but at the same time it says, is this me? So if I'm saying, is this me, but you look like a warrior, we could kind of see that as like, maybe you might have lost yourself right now, but the fact that there's a new moon here, maybe it's changed you. Do you see what I'm saying? Because if we're going, is this me? When I think of is this me in general, I think of body language like, oh my God, like shame. You know what I mean? But the fact that she looks like a warrior, it's almost like she's turned lemons into lemonade. You know what I mean? Also being drawn to the fact that it looked like she could have been crying, like the makeup. So, yeah, I just heard the song Dry Your Eyes. And then it almost kind of looks like there's flames behind her. So again, it's kind of giving me like, this is not going to have to be my story. And so I'm going to fight for myself. I'm going to, even though I'm lost, maybe I am going to tell my truth eventually. Because again, that sword is right there. But if not, we might be looking at someone who's about to fight. But again, it always depends on the surrounding cards. Do you see what I'm saying? Is there anything else from this card, Spirit? I'm being drawn to the chain on her leg. So if we're talking about dark stuff, was someone trapped? Were they confined? Were they arrested if we're doing true crime? If we were doing like history stuff, was she in a war and that's how she lost herself? So again, it's looking into... This is also remind me of like S&M. So maybe, you know, sexual endeavors gone wrong. That could be another pull on that one as well. She just looks like a bad bitch that's confused because she's been through some shit, would be like the general energy that I get. But again, pull on what you're seeing. The moon, the number, the attire, the facial expressions, the body language. What are in the photos? Why is there a sword in this photo other than to think of the Ace of Swords, communication and new ideas? And it feels it's like it's blocked, because if the Ace of Swords was up in tarot, then I would be like, oh, they're about to speak on something. But the fact that it's blocked, it's almost giving me like preparation time potentially, or, you know, the darker stuff like Diddy. Is she covering up something? Is she afraid to speak on it, but she's trying to empower herself to do so? So right now, that's why she's not saying anything. But again, like, let's say this card was reversed, right? Then I'd be like, okay, she's starting to figure out who the fuck she is now. She's about to speak out on it, because now the Ace of Swords is up. Now the 4, which reminds me of Leo, ego energy, it's reversed. So now it's like, fuck it. We ride at dawn. That's kind of the vibe. So again, flipping the answers we just got to get a different answer. You know what I'm saying? Can't talk, will talk. Kind of lost, but battle scarred. I'm not going to take this anymore. Do you see what I'm saying? And if you guys have more questions, we could dive into other stuff too. 5, Gilded Regret. Anyone that's been following me for a while knows that when I see this stuff that kind of resembles, it just reminds me of the Ten of Swords for some reason. There's a few cards that remind me of the Ten of Swords when I see this. So that would remind me of like burnout, mental anguish, someone putting their shit into your head that doesn't technically resonate with you, because it reminds me of like splinters in your energy field. Notice how it's on the chakra. So this kind of reminds me almost of like narcissistic abuse, like people telling you shit that's starting to make you lose yourself. Notice how she's pale. So it's like, what has she been told that's making her lose herself? And then 5 is always the number of change, right? So are we, especially with Gilded Regret on the bottom, are we at a point, and look at all the blue, are we at a point where we need change because all the shit that's been put in our head? Yeah, I'm hearing the song, all the things you said running through my head. So this might be someone who is fed up and might be speaking out soon with that 5 there, and the fact that there's a waning crescent right here, which would lead to a new moon, right? Unless it'd be like the opposite of that. I can't think, I'm sorry. Yeah, with the blue, again, reminds me of the throat chakra. So again, depending on surrounding cards. And then she also has, just like the obsession card, it looks like she's holding some sort of orb. So I would ask, like, does this person have information on what someone else has said? And that's why there's this regret going on. Does she know something that she wants to share and get out? So again, it's looking deeper into these cards. All right, number 6, alone in the world. I feel like this one's obvious. When we do the nastier ones like Diddy, this always reminds me of like a casting couch. If you know, you know. It rhymes with prom, but change the letters and add an N instead of an M. You know what I mean? Notice how her back is to the camera, which reminds me of shame. Also reminds me of vulnerability. So who did we give ourselves to that now we're shameful about? There's pink and there's white, so my heart might have been hurt because of the pink on this card. The white reminds me of purity, right? So maybe this person, this could remind me of, I don't know why, but Brock Turner's coming in my head. So if you've heard of that story, so like maybe this woman has been Law and Order SVU. Do you see what I'm saying? And now she feels like she doesn't know where to turn. Notice how it's half a full moon. So it's giving me 50-50, like should I stay, should I go, what do I do? I would assume that this person doesn't really know where she's going to head to next. And especially with the 6 solidifying what I'm already saying, because the 6 always reminds me of like the 6 of Swords. But again, it might mean something for you. It might mean the 6 of Wands for you. Might mean the 6 of Pentacles for you. It wasn't a fair exchange. Do you see what I'm saying? Or the 6 of Cups. I thought you were my soulmate. So noticing the numbers, noticing the signs, noticing the colors, noticing the body language will really help you. If we were doing like a true crime or something like that, I would feel the need to ask, like, did something happen outdoors? Because notice how she's not inside. The inside's right over there. So did something happen outside? So looking deeper into the cards. I think I might have to do this a 3-part series or something, because this might end up being too long. How many cards are in this total? Yeah, 32. Okay. So we'll do a 2-part. We'll do like 16 and then we'll go from there. All right. And then you guys comment down below if you want me to do another one of these to finish it. Sacrifice. When I think of 7, I think of, it's a very spiritual number. Kind of gives me like lessons that we can't avoid type of vibe. And also remind me of the fact that she's in armor. So again, is she about to go fight because there's something she's passionate for? She feels like she needs to fight for something. But with sacrifice on the card, especially if we're doing dark topic type of stuff, maybe this is like Usher. Maybe you're doing the bidding for someone else with sacrifice on it. Could take it quite literally because she's holding a sword. Maybe someone sacrificed someone else so that they could hide what they were doing, their dirt. Especially with the fact that she's wearing armor. So what are you trying to hide? Why aren't you vulnerable? Just like the card Alone in the World. Why are you so guarded? Especially with the fact that the knife is in front of her body, which again gives me like that gesture of like keeping distance. So what are you hiding is kind of the vibe from this card. But on the positive end of it, I could see this like going to war. This kind of gives me like a Me Too movement vibe as well. Like, oh hell, it ends with me. Like that's kind of the vibe, because notice how there's a buildup of the moon. Do you see what I'm saying? So like maybe this woman's been victimized and it's in her destiny or whatever to fight back. And maybe it means, maybe, this reminds me, I hate to bring it up, but I was part of the Me Too. And I decided 10 years later, when I was ready, to report it. I knew nothing was ever going to happen, but I wanted it on file in case anyone ever also accused that man. And so this is kind of giving me like it ends with me vibes. So even if something bad were to happen to me, at least I did what I had to do. That's kind of the vibe that I'm getting from this. So again, it always kind of depends on the surrounding cards. I'm also being drawn to the fact that part of her face is illuminated. So maybe she's not fully sure where she is yet. It depends on what's going to pop up for you as you're reading these cards. Anything else? I think you guys get it with this one. The armor, half of her face is hidden. Noticing the face. Obviously, she's not happy about it. And then the sword kind of speaks for itself. Combat, war, taking someone's life, something like that. Something along those lines. If this is in the reverse, sometimes I see this as like a self-sacrifice, which I've kind of been alluding to anyway. But like, yeah, just self-sacrifice. So like, if we were covering something less dark, I would kind of want to ask, why are you ignoring your life path with that 7 being reversed and sacrificing yourself on behalf of someone else? That's kind of giving me like people pleaser energy. Usher. I don't know why, but it's just a lot of Usher in this energy. So yeah, that's what I would get from this card. The child that was meant to be, number 8. Full moon. So that reminds me of emotions are at an all-time high. But then there's the child, right? The innocence. So be noticing that, the innocence. The 8 always reminds me of like 8 of Pentacles. So work. So especially when we cover things like Diddy, if we're talking about children, I would be like, were children harmed in the work environment with that 8 right there? You know what I mean? Did they see that they could grow? This kind of reminds me of Justin Bieber energy, how he's very talented and they took advantage of that. This also reminds me of planting a seed and letting it bloom, but notice how she's holding it. And if you know anything about plants, if you pull it out of nature, it will die. So this kind of reminds me of like stealing someone's idea too, because that root there is no longer attached to the ground. So the child that was meant to be, if we're talking about something like abuse, for instance, it's like you took away this kid's ability to grow potentially. Like maybe this kid's now going to have trauma because of something that happened to them, or someone selfish hurt them because they wanted whatever it is that this kid had to offer, because now it's not in the ground anymore. Do you see what I'm saying? And again, as always, being drawn to the colors, like depending on surrounding cards, maybe this person beats themselves up because with all this purple, it reminds me of the crown chakra. So maybe they intuitively knew that they shouldn't have been around that person or something like that, but they didn't listen to themselves because it was probably in their life path plan with meant to be on that card. But then if it was in the reverse, I wouldn't necessarily say it was meant to be. You know what I mean? So that's kind of the vibe with this card. And again, going back to color, right? Yellow always reminds me of the solar plexus. So maybe this person, especially with child that was meant to be, is if we're covering darker stuff, maybe this person has been through a lot of abuse and so their solar plexus is starting to take the grunt. Or maybe it's overactive and now they're getting more aggressive. Think of how Justin Bieber tends to treat women, right? He's been through a lot of abuse, so now he's probably overactive in his solar plexus. Not nowadays, but back when he would date people like Selena and newer relationships. So being drawn to these colors. Noticing how her eyes are closed. Why are her eyes closed? Did she see something or did something happen to her and she doesn't want to face it? Being drawn to the fact that her mouth is shut. Does she know something that she doesn't want to talk about? That came from her youth. Because it's being held in her hand, that little thing that she grew. Because remember, that's how all life is formed, right? It starts with a seed. Even sexually, it starts with a seed. You know what I mean? So it's like, that was taken away from me. Also kind of reminds me of like religious indoctrination, because it kind of reminds me of those like outfits that they wear in church. I don't follow church, so I wouldn't know. But yeah, I would just ask you to dive into the complexities of the imagery itself. I'm also being drawn to the green down there, which kind of reminds me of like a peacock. So maybe this kid stuck out, you know? This kind of reminds me of the true crime stories. If we're looking into stuff like that, maybe this kid had a different type of flair. Maybe this child was more rambunctious, especially with the yellow, right? Solar. So maybe this kid had a lot of energy and it stood out, and that's why this child was picked from the bunch. You know what I'm saying? So that type of energy. Reversed. Honestly, with the reverse, kind of the same energies. I would just say that maybe it was happenstance instead of life was meant to make it happen, because with meant to be kind of feels like it's a spiritual lesson, but if it's in the reverse, it kind of feels like my choice was taken away from me, for lack of a better word. Okay. Envious, gluttony. I think this one speaks for itself. Jealousy. The 9 always reminds me of 9 of Wands, so I'm exhausted. I'm on my final stretch. I can't take it anymore. That's the type of vibe. Notice how it's building up to a full moon. Full moons were exceptionally emotional. Also notice how they're kind of on some form of a... Oh my God, why can't I think? I think I'm part channeling, and that's probably why. Throne. Thank you, Spirit. Yeah. So... how did you get to where you are today? So again, like Diddy readings and stuff like that, you're on some kind of throne. yet you're still envious. You're still unhappy. Why is that? What did you do to get here? You know what I mean? And notice how there's like, she's wearing that headpiece that kind of looks like teeth and stuff. So it's like, did you have to kill a couple people to get where you are? Is that why that's on top of your head? You see what I'm saying? And then notice how it's a frail body. So again, it's like, if it wasn't that dark, then like this person's not taking care of themselves. But usually with this card, it is that dark. So it's like you're kind of losing yourself with that fragility of the body there. It's kind of like you're withering away and losing your soul. I mean, look at that face. It's not a happy person. You know what I mean? Darkness would be the main energy for this one. And like, how did you climb to the top? And you've been through it. And then like true crime too. I don't know why, but I'm actually being drawn to like the woods and stuff like that. So I'd almost wonder, did something happen in the woods? Did someone get hurt? They were barefoot. Maybe they lost a shoe. True crime, right? Look at the foot. There's no shoe there. So maybe like if we were looking into a missing case and you're drawn to the foot, don't make things fit that don't have to fit. But I was just drawn to that for the first time. So it's like, okay, why are you missing a shoe? You know what I'm saying? Diving into the depth of the cards. There's blood on this person. So again, speaks for itself. This just reminds me like the woods. So again, if we were doing a true crime case, I'd be wondering like, is there a body in the woods? Did it happen in the woods? Is there something to do with the woods? And again, climbing to the top at the expense of others because of the blood on there. This is definitely going to have to be a two-part. There's no way I'm doing 30-something cards in this one thing. Okay. Colorless Angel speaks for itself, I feel. But 10, completion, right? We've done all we could, and what did it do for us? We're a shell of ourselves, right? We're bleak. We're not color anymore. All the colors washed out. Think about like when you're really sick and then your color goes. You know what I mean? Like when you're about to... and all of a sudden the color fades from your face. So that's something that I would be drawn to with Colorless Angel. I would also be drawn to the fact that it says angel on it. So I would ask, like, was this someone that the people around them felt were reputable people? Was it, like, no one thought Diddy was a bad person? You know what I mean? Colorless Angel. So were you masquerading as a good person, but we had no idea what you were doing, and it was slowly eating away at you, ironically, because now you're a shell of yourself, or you're doing danger to someone else, and now they're shells of themselves, depending on the surrounding cards. I'm also always drawn to the black horse there. Horses represent freedom, but then the blackness kind of reminds me like yin-yang energy, so this kind of gives me the vibe of like choosing the wrong path, the darkness again, right? Because now you're a shell of yourself. It is a man on the card, but depending on what you're reading, if you do notice the long hair and the thin body, we could be drawn to like, was a woman harmed? If you're drawn to the long hair and I'm also being drawn to the fact that his or her, it kind of feels gender neutral to be honest, but notice how the arm is like over the sexual organs. So what are you trying to hide sexually speaking? Do you see what I'm saying with that one? Or have you been R-worded yourself? Because again, that arm is hiding the sacral and the root. So were you hurt, or did you hurt someone else? That's kind of the vibe I'm getting from. Also an exhaustion thing, losing myself. This could be losing myself to drugs, a little bit more simple than just abuse and stuff like that. So again, it's dependent on surrounding cards. They could have also convinced themselves that they were good people, and now they're starting to realize that they're not, because I'm being drawn to like the little crown on their head. It's kind of giving me J-Lo energy, how she thought she was like the greatest thing, and then the whole world just like canceled her out all at once, even her husband. So it's kind of giving me that vibe of like maybe we've been lying to ourselves thinking that we were an angel, but at what cost is kind of the vibe with this card. I'm gonna have to clean up after all this. Ugh. All right, next we have Addicted. 11, very spiritual number. Also reminds me of 2 because I can reduce it. So 2 of Cups, 2 people. Again, with the swords coming out, reminds me of a sabotage, mental anguish. And then the reverse, self-sabotage, someone doing it to you. A very obvious one would be like stabbed in the back for me on that one. Losing myself again, noticing the skeletal I can't talk, I'm so sorry. And then also the chain on the neck. So who are you chained to? This is a really good way to explain Usher in a lot of these cards. Because it's like, okay, you're a shell of yourself. Notice again the body language, right? The head's down. So if the head's down, it's like, what are you ashamed about? Because if you're not ashamed, you're not going to hide your face. You know what I mean? So whoever this person is, they're not exactly proud. They're not, bigging themselves up. They're going through something. Addiction, that one's obvious. I don't feel like I really need to go into that. Maybe they just really have an actual addiction, drugs, alcohol, all that stuff. Especially, again, with the chain. We don't know where that chain's headed, so maybe this could be like, if you're looking into someone you care about and this pops up, like maybe they're addicted to drugs that you're unaware of, because notice how it fades away, so you don't know what this chain is connected to. Do you see what I'm saying? The face looks like it's starting to, die. So this could be like someone dying of a drug overdose. I could see that too. And a lot of like, either I've been backstabbed or I feel like I've screwed myself over. I feel like I'm too in my thoughts, because again, these just reminds me of the swords. So it's like, what have you been through that you can't really deal with anymore? And then if this was like in the reverse, then I would think that someone's trying to get out of what it is they're going through, getting out of what it is that they're chained to. Because notice how, again, that waning, am I saying that right? I think it might be waxing. I don't fucking remember. Crescent moon. It's a crescent moon. So are you about to tell the truth about something that you went through? Because this looks like it's headed towards a new moon. Do you see what I'm saying? So diving into that. Well, how many cards is in this? 36. So we might just go to 32. Okay, so we'll do 15. And then if you guys want a part 2, let me know. All right, artificial heart. The neck always reminds me of like BDSM. So it could be dark, like you were abused to that capacity, because artificial heart, right? This is definitely a card that seems to come up a lot when we do Diddy readings. But this might just mean sexual addiction. You know how some people escape through sex? I could see that. Like, I feel numb inside, so I like it really rough, which, whatever, there's nothing wrong with that, but also work on your trauma, because everybody deserves to feel good. But I would be wondering what made you numb. Notice, again, there's no color in her. So this kind of reminds me, and I totally support sex workers, do what you got to do, but there are a lot of sex workers out there that feel like they don't love, not all of them, but some don't really love themselves. They don't know what else to do. And it's like, well, men have been abusing my body for years. I might as well make a buck off of it, which I get it. So I would be wondering about that as well. Like, were you kind of indoctrinated into it a little bit? Like, were you abused by men early on? And so you just kind of decided to shut your heart off to save yourself. Like, that's kind of the vibe I get with this card, especially with that thing on her head. Kind of reminds me of like blocking the intuition, because the third eye is usually around here. So it's like, and blocking the crown. So maybe we've kind of lost ourselves again with that type of vibe in that card. Yeah, because even though the card is like a gray and a silver, there's still little bits of green there, which reminds me of the heart chakra. So it's almost like I don't want to lose myself, but I am. You know what I mean? You could be drawn to the things like the cut of the hair, if we're trying to figure out, like, if someone went missing, did they change their appearance because you knew them for long hair, but then this card comes out and she's got super short hair and now she looks different. Do you see what I'm saying? So it's diving into that. 2 and 1 reduces to 3, so were 3 people involved? Was it you and 2 other people? Was this something to do, 3 of Pentacles, right? Was this something that happened to you at work? Were you hurt at work? And then again, being drawn to the fact that there's a new moon on there. So what does that say? So being drawn to those things in particular. This gives me like S&M vibes more than anything else. Dom behavior. But then it also reminds me of like sex. I sit in traffic, because notice there's a chain and it's headed behind her, but we can't see where it leads. So maybe she's gone cold, because what we don't know is, a lot of people call them handlers, stuff like that. But even if we're doing like true crime or something like that, someone's pulling the strings. I could see that with this card as well. Blinded to pain. 3 and 1 reduces to 4. That reminds me of Leo, ego. You got hurt at the expense of someone's ego, right? Blinded to pain. This could be literal abuse, obviously. Notice the flies. So this could be like a decaying body if we were doing true crime, like maybe someone's buried somewhere. And that's why this card's coming up, because of the flies, trying to get you to realize that they were abused and now they're degrading, like in a field somewhere. Like I could see that with this card. This person could have been just being drawn to the fact that the eyes are being hidden too. You know what I mean? So it's like maybe I didn't want to see what was happening. It's kind of giving me that, oh God, I don't want to see it type of vibe. This actually, someone pointed this out to me. I didn't even realize it. I said this in a Diddy reading. I felt that there would have been proof that someone had been actually physically harmed with knives, and it turned out I was right. So being drawn to the fact that there's cuts on the body, as gruesome as it is, we are talking about dark mirror here. So being drawn to the cuts, right? Was this person physically, you know, maybe they were silenced and now they're pretending they didn't see anything because they were hurt. Do you see what I'm saying? Because 3 reminds me again, 3 of Pentacles. 1 is a new endeavor. It also reminds me of the Magician. So it's like maybe something happened at work and we're masquerading as if everything's okay, especially with all the celebrities that we cover. But notice how even her lips, they look like they're torn up. So it's you know what it's reminding me of? Cassie with the whole P. Diddy thing and the abuse. And then there's like mascara on her face. So it's almost kind of like she's crying. So again, diving into the depth of the cards. I think I'm going to do like 2 more and then we'll call it. And then if you guys want a part 2, let me know. Hiding your true self speaks for itself, right? This also reminds me of like having a fall guy. Like maybe we did something, but we're going to make it look like it's somebody else. This also reminds me of celebrities that put on a front. J-Lo pretending she's a nice girl. Ellen pretending she cares about other people, although she's been through trauma, so, and they all have, so we've just been supporting people that are traumatized, so we should probably stop doing that. But anyway, hiding our true selves. If we're doing stuff like Diddy, true crime, stuff like that, what do we really need to know about you? This also kind of reminds me of like, do you have a twin? If we're doing something a little less dark, because there's 2, you know? Was there 2 people involved? Why are you hiding yourselves? Why are you wrapped up in red? Because red is the root. So did something happen where now we don't feel safe? So it's looking into stuff like that. Also notice how someone's following someone else. So is someone taking orders from someone else? 4 and 1. So again, 4, that Leo energy, that ego energy. 1, new beginnings. The Magician, looking at that stuff. The half moon. I don't know if I want to speak or if I should keep it silent. You know what I mean? I would also say, especially when it comes to Diddy readings, the fact that the person that's following behind is the one that's watching, I would say be careful, because the person that's, you know, following you, I can't think of the word, like predecessor, that person following you has a lot of dirt on you because they're watching your every move. Yeah, I just heard that song, every step I take, every move you make, I'll be watching you. So I'd be a little worried if we were talking about somebody. I'd be worried, well, not worried for them, like if we were talking about Diddy, but I'd be like, there are people in your camp that have been watching your every move because they've been pretending that they're a good guy. This is giving me op energy. You know what I mean? And it feels like the person that's running the show is none the wiser because they're just looking down, moving forward. Do you see? So it's diving into the imagery. And they're both like, look at how their hands are like hiding around their heart. So maybe they've done something that they can't deal with emotionally because their heart is hidden with their hands, the gesture. Behavioral analysis really helps here. Kind of gives me walk of shame vibes too. If it's not as dark, it would kind of give me like walk of shame, like, oh God, like I slept with that dude when I was drunk and now I woke up and now this is really embarrassing. So again, diving into that. All right, we're going to do 2 more. And then if you guys want the part 2, you're going to have to blow up the comment section because I don't know how good this video is going to do. And it's okay. Like, I understand this is not a Ariana Grande reading. I get it. Masquerade. Again, why is there stuff on her head, who's feeding her information, who's making her lose herself, because it's going directly to the crown, right? And the Masquerade speaks for itself, like you're hiding yourself. But then again, being drawn to the moon, turning into a full moon. So this person might be on their way to sharing what they've known. You know what I mean? They might not be able to, yeah, I'm hearing the song, We're Not Going to Take It Anymore. That's kind of the vibe. Also the fact that her mouth is shut, but the moon is getting fuller. So it's like maybe they've been quiet for a while, but they've been like spiraling because of everything that they know. So they might be on their way of talking, because look, it's 15, right? 5 is the number of change. 1 is the number of new beginnings. We already went over this, right? So maybe this person needs a change because they're tired of pretending. Do you see what I'm saying? They're tired. They want different. They don't want people putting shit in their head anymore. That's kind of the vibe I get from this card. Also being drawn, in fact, there's like pinks in there and stuff. So I think, again, like the higher heart chakra, or the heart in general. So it's like, I've been masquerading for a while, but with all that heart energy up top, I would think that they can't handle the masquerade anymore because it's breaking their heart, or they need to do something to right wrongs because they listen to their heart. You know what I mean? Anything else? Only other way would be like if this was in the reverse, I would say like I don't think they're lying. If depending on the surrounding cards, but with Masquerade in the reverse, I would be like maybe they've been through some shit, but they're not who they used to be. Like that would give me the vibe of like an addict that's gotten sober. Like if I was doing a reading like that and this card was reversed, I'd be like, it's not a front. They really have changed. Look at all that pink. They don't want to be that person anymore. 5 and 1 reduces to 6, which is a transition, 6 of swords, right? So if this was reversed, I'd be like, I don't think they're fake anymore. But it depends on the surrounding cards. And finally, last card for part 1. Black flower fragrance. I know a lot of people have a hard time with this card. I've come up with my own definitions. I don't even know if my definitions have anything to do with what's in that book. If it does, great. If it doesn't, okay. This reminds me of a lot of things. You're in a shitstorm. Look at how it looks like a storm. Look at how her hair is not, it's not, it looks like there's wind, right? Because otherwise your hair don't look like that. So it kind of feels like I'm in a tornado. I'm in chaos, right? That full moon, the emotions are high. This always reminds me of the song Roses Really Smell Like Poo. So someone's selling some bullshit and it hit me right in the heart space because look, it's right around the heart. This also reminds me of like if we're covering, because we're going to cover dark shit with this. Is this someone that abuses you and then buys you gifts? Like, I'm sorry. Because that kind of reminds me of like being bought flowers after, and it was like, oh, I didn't mean to hit you, honey. I'm so sorry. I love you. I wasn't thinking clearly. I was just drunk. Like, that's kind of the vibe I get from that as well. Like, you've been sold a lie because you got flowers. Yeah, I'm hearing Bruno Mars. I should have got you flowers. So I would ask, like, was this woman abused? Again, the thinness, is she losing herself? She can't eat, maybe. She's struggling with that. This also, for some reason, sometimes will remind me of, like, a grave or, like, a wake when they're in, like, the casket, like the viewing casket. They're sitting like that and people put stuff in it. So if we were doing, like, true crime or something, you might be drawn to the wake, and then something might tell you, like, the murder person put something in the casket because of the black flowers. So do you see what I'm saying? Like, you could really dig into these cards. And again, with the full moon, maybe there's an expose coming, or maybe this woman's going to speak out if she's alive, or if she was murdered, maybe it's going to come out soon with that full moon there. And then 6 and 1, 6 transition, 1 is magician. So again, I would ask, like, if this was a true crime and we're talking about a couple, maybe this is the husband that everybody thought was perfect. He was a doctor. He had 5 degrees, but little did you know he was abusing his wife. Like, the magician's all about, like, trickery and foolery. You know what I mean? And this woman might be trying to get away. It's reminding me of that movie with J-Lo where she was abused and she was trying to run away for her and her kid. It's actually a really good movie. Because of that new beginnings with the 1 there. So I would be asking, something bad probably happened. Let's try to escape it. If this was in the reverse for me, I would say you're not being sold being sold bullshit if it's in the reverse. And again, with that full moon, maybe someone told you something because I felt the need because I was overwhelmed with emotion. I told you something. You might be questioning what they're saying. So if this is in the reverse, I would be like, depending on surrounding cards, I would be like, I don't necessarily know that it's all bullshit. Maybe there's some bullshit because Black Flower Fragrance did come out. But the fact that it's reversed kind of tells me that maybe they did some dirt, but they want to change, you know? Like, I was an alcoholic. A lot of people didn't trust me when I first got sober. It's kind of giving me that same type of vibe where it's like, can't trust you yet. But the fact that it's in the reverse, it almost kind of gives me the vibe of like, I'm telling you the truth. Maybe it looks bad, but there is some semblance of truth to it. I hope that makes sense. So if you guys want me to do a part 2 on this and you want me to cover the rest of the cards, let me know, and I totally will. But I don't want to make this an hour long. Oh, it is. Yeah, shocking. Me making an hour long video, trying not to. This would have been 2 hours. That's wild. So if you guys like this, please leave a comment so that other people can find this video, because this one isn't going to do as well as the others. And I want people that have this deck to be able to find this so that maybe this can help them as well. But it doesn't even have to be this deck, guys. Like, just notice how I was looking at the color schemes. I was looking at the body language. I was looking at the facial expressions. I was looking at, you know, the tentacles on the head touching the crown chakra. I was noticing the body language. Why is your hands hiding your heart space? Or why is your arm covering your uterus or your genitals? Looking into the depth of that card. Why is the card no color? Or why does the card only have blue, which represents the throat chakra? Is someone going to speak out? Or if the color is yellow, that's the only color showing. Maybe the ego, right? Solar plexus, maybe that's overactive. So when you're reading all of these cards, take into consideration all of these little things, because that's how you're going to be an even better reader, noticing the depth of those cards. So I hope this made sense. Please let me know if you made it to the end of this video. Let me know if you want me to finish this and do a part 2, because this is something that I could do while I'm in bed resting this week, because it's only like minimal. I mean, I channel even when I don't choose to. They be talking to me all the time. But my goal with this but my goal with this was just to get you to see in general that there is depth to every single card. It's why I can pull that's why I have multiple tarot decks, because sometimes, you know, like we have the empath deck where there's the 6 of swords and there's a father in the water holding his kid above him and there's a shark right behind him. So for me, it's like that father's trying to make sure that that kid's safe from the things that he's been through. You see what I'm saying? So never underestimate imagery. And while it's important to know definitions, especially to get you started, the imagery, the colors, the body language, the facial expressions will give you a lot more to tap into to get you a lot more details within your readings. So I'm going to leave it here, besties. thekarmicdf.com if you want to book a private reading. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. I also made a new Snapchat. So if you guys want to add me, I'm on there occasionally, and I just need new people in my life. So if you want to add me, message me on Facebook or Instagram, and I'll send you the handle. But with this Mercury retrograde in particular, God was like, the past must go. And so I listened. Actually, if you already follow me on Facebook and Instagram, I now have a trash bag full of cut up photos, because I'm like, I need my soul tribe to come in. So if you think you're my soul tribe, send me a message on Facebook or Instagram and add me on Snapchat. But I'm going to leave it here, besties. I hope that you guys have a wonderful day. Thank you so much. If you enjoyed this, please share it with people that you think might get benefit from this video. And I'm going to leave it here, besties. Thank you guys so much. I love you guys. Comment down below if you made it to the end. Just leave an emoji. I don't care. Just so that other people can find this video. But thank you guys so much for watching.